Alright guys, so I'm going to give you just a little rundown on how to install your new wide body kit for the SCX24 C10. Now when you get your kit, they're going to be completely cured, cleaned, and removed from the supports. All you'll have to do is just clean up the tabs from where the supports were hooked to the fenders a little bit. And I find just a sanding drum on a Dremel and light pressure, just take your time, cleans that up real nice. And then you just sand the outside smooth. You can start with 500 grit, work your way up from there if you don't want it perfectly smooth. That's all I did on mine. And you build up enough primer, sand that out smooth, and then build up enough paint. You really don't notice the layer lines anymore. Or you can start with 220, 320, somewhere in that range to really knock down those layer lines and smooth them out more. It's up to you. Now, because of design limitations, these are not a perfect fit against the body right out of the printer. So what you're going to end up having to do is just do a little bit of sanding along the mounting surfaces, which you're going to have to sand them some anyways to clean up the support marks. But you can just sand them up and get them fitting those body lines a lot better. So hopefully you can kind of see that a little bit there. But I mean, once you get them cleaned up, they still fit perfectly fine without fitting them to the body lines. It's just, if you want them to fit the body lines better, you will have to sand them to do that yourself. So I've had good luck with a multitude of paints on these resin prints. They're pretty resilient, but you definitely do want to paint them. So I cure these to what I have found to be an optimal amount of time where they still retain a little bit of flexibility. Obviously you're not going to be able to completely bend them around, but they do still have enough flexibility in them so that, say you're coming up against a rock face and you nose into it a little bit and you bend that nose back some, the fenders will handle it. And that's something that I've done a lot with the set that I've got on this truck. And I mean, they're still holding up beautifully. There's no cracks or anything. The only spot that I've got any crackage on any of mine is the right front, right at that bolt hole, because I ended up drilling it a little bit too close to the top and then just over tightened the screw. So just be mindful of that. It's resin. It is fairly brittle, but I use Voxelab ABS type resin. And like I said, with the amount that I cure it, I find it lends itself very well to this kind of application and will take quite a beating. But as far as painting, I've had really good results with Duplicolor's sandable primers, Tamiya primers and paints, Rust-Oleum primers and paints, and Model Car World primers and paints. I really recommend Tamiya or something like that, something where you can get polycarbonate paints as well as regular lacquers. That way you can color match. This is actually the old body off of this truck that will not be going back on it. This is just going to become a prototyping body for trying out new designs. Initially, you can see I started to strip it and was going to repaint this one, but I decided I wanted the optional tinted windows like what comes on the gray C10, so I went ahead and just bought a new body kit, and I'll retrim it, refit my fenders to it, and the whole thing will get repainted so the fenders actually match now. As far as once you get everything fitted, don't cut your body until you've got your fenders mounted. Now these do not come pre-drilled. You have the option to either glue them on, which I don't recommend. However, if you're gonna go that route, I would recommend using E6000 or something similar. This stuff dries fairly slowly. It's got, I find, about a 24-hour cure time, but it bonds just about anything together, and it stays flexible, so you're not as likely to damage anything should you peel a fender off. That's what I use for gluing on magnet mounts for bodies and whatnot, and it holds very well. But what I recommend doing is actually drilling these out and bolting them on, which is what I did with mine. Now, I drilled these out with, I believe, a 1.5 millimeter drill bit first. That way, they'll accept 1.4 millimeter hardware. And then all I did was I picked the screws that I wanted to use, and I measured the diameter of the bolt head, and then just added about 1/4 of a millimeter to that, and countersunk my holes so the heads sit down inside the fender rather than on top of it. And you can see they've taken a beating. They're getting pretty scarred up. This truck does get wheeled, and it does get wheeled pretty hard, and they're still holding up really well. So I've actually rolled this thing off of my crawler course from the top level of it down to the bottom level of it, about 2.5 feet, many times, and many times it has landed directly on the fenders. And I'm still on my first set, so we'll see how long they hold up, but so far they're going great. So once you get them mounted, now you can use as many screws as you want. I used 4 on my rears, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and then I used 2 on the fronts just because real estate's kind of limited up here because of the way these fenders are designed. The fronts have to be very aggressive to allow tire clearance when turning. And mind you, I only have pit bull rockers on this truck. They're about a 2-inch diameter tire. Very small compared to some of what's on the market, and I still had to trim this much just to keep them from rubbing, as well as take a little 45 off the front of the rocker panel. But I would say this is the way I recommend laying out your screws. It just works extremely well and leaves you with plenty of room to get your screws in there, but still trim the body very heavily behind the fenders. So hopefully you can see just how much actual clearance there is in there. So once you've got your fenders mounted and bolted on, then what I did is I took a fine point Sharpie, one of the little needle point Sharpies, and went in and just traced around the inside of the fenders as best I could. And there's room to trim some more. One thing you could also do is just trace your top line and then leave yourself just a little bit of room inside of your bolt holes and trim it out even more than what I did. But I mean, it's up to you how much you want to trim, how much you don't want to trim. The biggest thing is just tire clearance. Trim them up a lot. These will allow you to run a wider offset wheel or wheel hex wideners and still keep your tires mostly covered, as well as running a fairly good sized tire without rubbing the body and without just having to gash unsightly holes in the side of it. But I would recommend at least trim off enough that when you're looking at the truck from the side, you can't see the original body behind these anymore, just from an aesthetics point of view. Now, as of right now, I'm still waiting on my new body to come in. I need to get this video out in time for the release, so I can't actually show you installing them. So hopefully, you've got enough information from here to be able to figure it out for yourself. I use just standard 1.4 millimeter hardware. These are the same style of screws that come in the SCX24. I just bought a few packs of assorted SCX24 replacement hardware, and then I got on, I believe it was McMaster Car, and ordered a bulk pack of 1.4 millimeter nuts. These take a 2.5 millimeter driver, which I've got a little one here from RC 4-wheel drive. They come in a pack of 4. So hopefully that's everything you need to know to get your fenders painted and mounted. And once you do, if you want to share them with me, you can tag me at adventure_207_RC on Instagram, or you can just post it to the SCX24 mods and fun page or the Axial SCX24 page on Facebook. I'm pretty active in both of those. Or you can do a video reply here, or, you know, just post a video to your own YouTube channel and tag my channel in it. I'd love to see what you guys come up with. So, thank you for purchasing the wide body kit, and thank you for watching.